It's showtime.
I think we're live, Josh.
Looks like it. 3 seconds in, Amar.
Oh, let's see. Let's see.
Let's see. Anybody on here?
I don't see anybody yet.
You see my comment show up there?
I did. Yo, 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 yo.
Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, ma.
You know who also does yo, 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 yo? Is Sam Long. If you're into triathlon, Sam Long, that's his whole thing.
Yo, 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 yo.
He's an American that is going to beat a whole bunch of records, I think.
Never heard of him. But so why is he stealing my ideas? You want to start with your disclosures?
Yeah. We just got to make sure that somebody's. Oh, yeah. I see 2 people here. All right.
Miguel.
How do I?
Miguel Mayorga. What's up, Miguel? Tim C.
All right. Before we get started, we got to do some disclosures. Basically, I'm a part of a SEC registered firm. Everything we're talking about is strictly educational. We have not entered into a client agreement, and none of this stuff is advice. It's educational. God, there's always 3 things. I missed one. So it's educational. There's no client agreement, and we haven't taken into account your specific situation. There we go. Those are the 3.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And today's topic is, building a strong financial legacy. Financial legacy isn't just about what you're leaving behind. It's really just about empowering the next generation to do better than the previous generation, right? And I think it's really important that we talk about this because it's getting a lot harder to do better than mom and dad did. Like if you look at costs, first-time home buying in the interest rate environment, the job market, things are just a tad bit different. So we're going to talk a little bit about things that we can do, how we can help G2 out. Miguel, come on. What part of California? California is so big. California is like what, 5 states on the East Coast?
Yeah, California's huge, man.
Yeah. What part of California are you at, Miguel? Again, for those of you, this is your first time watching, my name is Amar Shah. I work at Client First Capital. We're based out of San Diego. We are a SEC registered firm. We do investments and all the whole 9 yards of financial planning. My YouTube channel is Client First Capital Learning. If you're watching on Josh's channel, you can just X out and go over there. Help the YouTube algorithm. Please like and subscribe if you like the commentary. Ventura County, isn't that where Six Flags is?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
My wife was just there yesterday. Oh, not Six Flags, Disneyland. No. You got Six Flags California too?
Yeah, with all the roller coasters. No. So maybe I'm off. I thought that was Ventura, but I guess not. But anyways, whenever we go camping and stuff like that, we stop off right near Six Flags as a first, bathroom break. But anyways, all right, let's get started. We want to share actionable tips and everything here. So we have 5 tips. The first one is to focus on long-term planning. I think long-term planning is the key to setting up financial success for the next generation, because it stresses the compounding effect of savings. And I got one client story here. I had a client that started saving at 25 years old, was in the military, started saving wherever he was living. In the military, you get a housing allowance, right? And you would use that allowance to save and would live in a place that's a lot cheaper than that. Yeah, and, by the time he retired from the military, he had more than enough money. He didn't have to save another penny. He still worked, but then he was able to spend every single dollar that he had from that income. So, the power of compounding, right, is when you start to save early and you start to do that on a regular basis, helps with long-term planning. Anything to add to that, Josh? Any stories from your end?
Nah, it's 100%, man. It's just literally, it's amazing how time. I mean, everybody knows this, but the short term is always the short term. It is, man. But amazing how much time, just an extra 5 to 10 years can. Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is also when you're in retirement. Let's say you saved enough, right? But you still feel like working. You can still work, spend 100% of that money, and your money can continue to compound, right? Couple years here on either side of savings makes a big difference on the long-term impact of planning. So saving consistently and on a regular basis and focusing on the long term was tip number one. Yeah. Tip number two is really around diversification, but having an investment strategy or a plan or income strategy or plan, and not just going by the seat of your pants, not looking at last year's performance and seeing what is doing well. Oftentimes, I'll say this with dividend investors, right? Dividend investors tend to only focus on the dividend.
Yes.
And when you want to look at is the total return, right? Because the total return is the income plus the growth or loss or the equity piece of your investment. So like AT&T is a good example. A lot of people were following AT&T because of that massive dividend. AT&T stock dropped. I mean, your dividend's getting cut as well, right? Because it's based off the fair market value. So something to consider there is to look at total return, right? Total return is a big piece of that.
People fall for that all the time. The dividend yield. I said, all right.
Yeah. The other thing in the investment income strategy that I think people should focus on is fees and taxes, right? So I don't know if you remember, Josh, there was a year where you could do a Roth conversion and pay the taxes over 2 years.
Yep. 2011. Yes, sir. 2011.
I don't remember what year that was, but it
2011 is what it was. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I was close to 2010. But anyways, like, think about the long-term planning, but then also figure out the taxes and the impact, because the taxes will be a drag on your portfolio, number one. Number two, the fees, like some people have, we come across people that are paying really large fees and not having that factored into their total, expenditures, right? So I would definitely say fees and taxes are part of building a strategy, right? You want to reduce those as much as possible.
Back in the 90s, you could do Roth conversions and pay the taxes over 4 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Balancing, where you're getting your income sources. So to be diversified in your income sources is also important, right? Oftentimes when we're thinking about strategies, if you put all your eggs in one basket, like MLPs, those used to be really popular because you got such a high dividend. Non-publicly traded REITs used to be really popular because you get a high dividend, right? So just look at those things and making sure that you're balancing out your risk needs as well as you have a diversified stream of income. I would also say when you're talking about generation two, is that maybe you'll actually have two portfolios, right? So hear me out. You'll have one portfolio to meet your needs with the safety and margin, but maybe you have enough saved that another piece of your portfolio should really be geared to what your kids' needs are, right? So you can break up your portfolio into two parts. So I would also consider that part of your investment income and strategy. Anything else to add to that, Josh?
Nope.
All right, we're going to tip number 3.
Tip number 3.
Teaching your financial literacy. I mean, this is like fundamental stuff that how does money work, what to do, at an early age. So I got this book here. I don't know if is that coming across there, Josh? All right, Opposite of Spoil. This book was actually gifted to me when I had my first child 9 years ago now. God, she's going on 21.
Okay.
But this book had a big impact on me. So like what you can see is there's 3 buckets, right? And so whenever my daughter gets some money, we decide where to put it in. Are you gonna save some? We actually give them some interest on their savings, not quite what the Fed's given, but we give them something. Spend some now, and then give some to charity or to somebody else that needs money, right? So it teaches the principles of money. We even do this with Halloween candy, believe it or not.
Yeah, man.
Halloween's coming up. We want to make sure that you're not eating all the candy there. So this 3 buckets of money can create some structure and some discipline around spending money, and it can impact them throughout their lives. So really ages 0 to 10, really having like a system to think about money. One of the things that we do with the spend here now bucket is like my daughter's in a rock climbing, so we'll tell her we'll buy you rock climbing shoes, but if she wants a different pair of shoes that cost more, she has to pay for that difference, right? So that delta, right? So it creates some value of actually what those funds are for. And then again, the savings, we give some interest rate and that. I think ages 10 to 20, a good way to teach financial education is really just to get a job. I mean, it surprises me how many kids, between the ages of 10 to 20, don't get paid for chores or don't get a job or don't do anything. I mean, that's how you find out the true value of money, right? And so I think, oftentimes maybe as parents we're like, no, they got to do sports and all this other stuff, right? And my girls play soccer, so I'm totally in for sports, but getting a job is also a good way to learn about money.
My daughter got her first paycheck and she saw the FICA taxes. She was like pissed. What the hell? It's funny, man. It cracks me up, man.
I think ages 20 to 40, I think that's a great opportunity to do some savings matching goal as a family, right? So
40 might be a little bit too on the high end. I'd say 20 to 30.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to make these into buckets, but let's say 20 to 30 savings matching. Like, hey, if you put money in your 401k, Bank of Mom and Dad will also fund your Roth IRA on your behalf or something like that. And then let's say 30 plus, if you have assets that you're going to give to the second generation, you should really consider either doing the annual gifts, some of it, not all of it, but some of it. If you max that out, then you can consider doing an irrevocable trust for your children. And so, that allows them to start to get in the habit of managing money beyond the money that they have, right? So it's instead of just me, it's like kind of like the institution of Bank of Mom and Dad that I'm helping manage some funds.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're a small business owner. I think, being owner of a small business gives them some capacity to make decisions and stuff like that does impact the business. I think I covered all the topics I wanted on teaching financial literacy. Anything else you want to hit on there?
Well, just my own kids. At the end of the day, it's just talking. Like, I just think if they see you reading and talking or thinking about this stuff, some of that will get lost. My oldest, she started Roth when she got her first job, and she's asked me questions about it. But just don't hide these discussions from your children. Don't hide. Like, I'm not saying if you're about to go broke, you got to tell your kids, but just don't hide the ins and outs of your own financial stability and whatnot. I think it's very important for your kids to recognize it's not just all freaking peaches, man. There are some times that you're down, money's tight, and they got to know both sides of that, man. And I think a lot of I don't know this to be true, but I have a sneaky suspicion a lot of parents want to hide what could be considered bad news from the kids and I don't think you should. I mean, obviously you don't want to say, hey, but say, hey, man, it's a tough month this month. We got to cut back on buying those rock climbing shoes.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's very important to have those open conversations. And I think, look, a lot of millennials, Gen Z, they saw their parents through 2008, COVID, and all that, so they see the impact on their jobs and everything else like that. I think open communication is also great for tip number 4 is, growing your assets is great, but also protecting your assets is also important. So making sure you have a safety net. So this is emergency fund, looking at insurance and estate planning, right? So let's hit on all three. Emergency fund, we did a frequently asked questions, Josh and I, and quick and dirty is you got to have some emergency fund. You know, there are bear markets that are 3 years long. There are times where you have unexpected expenses. You got to have an emergency fund. You also got to refill your emergency fund as your income grows or your expenses grow, or as you use your emergency fund, right? Don't forget to, put money back into that. The second, insurance. Look, nobody has a 100% probability of knowing what's going to happen. Insurance is a way to transfer risk to another party, right? So, look at term insurance for the earlier years when you're trying to transfer the risk of a loss of income. Disability insurance is another one. In the later years, you want to look at things like long-term care insurance or something that, you got to have a plan in place, right? So that's insurance piece. And I know insurance gets a lot of bad rap, right? I think like whole life, universal life, like the permanent insurance policies get a bad rap. I'll just say this. A lot of insurance salespeople do not sell policies that are properly funded because they're expensive, right? Got to make sure your policies are properly funded. And one way you can do that is get a reprojection or a enforced ledger every year to make sure that you're on track and that you see that cash value continuing to grow. If you see that cash value peak and then start to come down, you're not funding it enough, right? It's a very easy task to do. Maybe it takes you 15, 20 minutes total, with a phone call, email, and getting that illustration. If you get the illustration and you need help reading it, just call us. We'll help you. All right, estate planning. I think estate planning, the basics, wills, trusts, healthcare directives, power of attorney, making sure you have the right people. A lot of people set up an estate plan when their kids are young, and they choose their friends and family members that are their age. And then when they're older, you got to change those people in there, right? Some of them may be
Are the cops outside your place there, Amar?
Yeah, you can hear them. No, that was a fire truck going that way.
Always the police and firemen in California. Always, always, always. So.
God, you got sensitive ears. You could hear that. That's like at least maybe 2,000 yards away from where I'm. I'm on the 8th floor. I mean,
I don't hear well, but I guess I heard that one. That's for sure. It's like,
So going back to this is all right. Making sure you have the right documents, right people, making sure you have the right terms in your trust. Like, how do you want these assets to be distributed? Do you want it all at once? Do you want it over a couple of years? Do you want to hold it in trust and then have your children be in charge of distributions over a period of time, right? These are all things that you have to consider. The biggest thing that we see is that whatever you decide is not communicated to generation 2. Mm-hmm. That's where families that love each other will, the money always gets people to butt heads. And so here's a quick story. Family, mom and dad are older. Dad passes, mom's left. Mom passes 2 years later. And now the kids realize that one child has outright access to their money and another child has to take distributions for 10 years. Mm. And the trustee for that child that has to take distributions over 10 years is sibling number 1. Mm. That was not a good situation. There were a lot of arguments. There were a lot of fights, and you don't want to put your kids in that position to be the one that has to give bad news to the other sibling. So make sure that you have a lot of communication. Anything to add to that, Josh, for protecting your wealth with the safety net of emergency fund, insurance, and estate planning?
The lack of communication is legion, that's for sure. Legendary. Yeah. It's sad, man. It's sad. So,
and I would also just add one thing here that's not on our talking points, but oftentimes, people that are saving have more than they need for a safety margin. So they have excess savings. They know that they have excess savings, and they're going to give that to their kids when they pass. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but you should also consider when your children have young kids, they're starting their jobs, they're financially stressed, they're emotionally stressed, that could also be a good time to help them out, right?
Mhm.
You know, it's you don't need to wait till you pass. All right, tip number 5, and this is the last one, is giving back, philanthropy, charitable. If you're charitably inclined, how to do it in a way that you're getting the tax benefits up front rather than your estate upon your passing. And so, there are different levels at looking at this. I will say that for most people, uh, you know, naming a charity in an IRA or something like that may be a good way of looking at things. Maybe setting up a donor advised fund would be a good way, and having your children be successor trustees on the donor advised fund. And then another thing to consider is that if you're very charitably inclined, is to get your children involved in the charitable process with you and have a family goal, right? So like some families have a goal of charitably giving, $5,000-$10,000 a year away a year, but they come together as a family and they decide on what causes they should work on. So one of the things that we've done with some of our clients is created this wheel of how do we have that conversation with our children of how do we identify what charities to give to. So first I think you got to really define what type of impact you want, right? And then you have to find causes that align with your impact, right? So if you want to help children that are in hospitals or that have cancer or whatnot, so now what you have to figure out the causes that can impact that, right? And then you got to work with the charities to identifying what are the causes that they're working on align with what's important to you. And then we can figure out how to gift money in a tax efficient strategy, which I would say 9 out of 10 times is not cash, right? So it's donor advised funds, appreciated securities, charitable remainder trusts, CRUTs. And then you want to go back to these charities to measure the impact of that gift. There's a lot of times that we find that there are charities that people give to that are small to medium size, and when they get a sizable gift, they can go down some rabbit holes, right? Like some projects that they wanted to do that they didn't have the funds for. Well, then they go down those rabbit holes, but they don't think about the continuation of those projects and funding them for a prolonged period of time. So, there are a lot of charities that we've worked with, like Wounded Warriors, Tunnel to Towers, and some canine rescue charities. And you got to have a long-term plan for your gifting. So, like, if you do have a project with one of these charities, it's not just 1 year. You got to figure out how to make it last for multiple years and then have legs of its own, right? Those were our 5 tips.
One book I've talked about this book before, everybody. This is Beyond the Grave: The Right Way and the Wrong Way of Leaving Money to Your Children, and others. Such a good book. My man Gerald and I forgot his Condon, Jeffrey and Gerald Condon have written this back. This is a long time ago. Anyway, so definitely get this book right here. Talk about estate planning, kind of what Amar was talking about, the lack of communication and things like that nature. It can be horrendous. Get that book. Absolutely. Amar, there's a good question here. Go down to Mike Rentmeester.
Oh, well, we'll start from the very top and go down. Is that okay?
I don't think we have any questions though, really, other than
all right. Well, if you guys have questions, we usually leave about 3 to 5 minutes at the end of these calls to answer questions. Put them in the comments. We'll go through them now. But I just wanted to just wrap a bow on this whole topic here, is that leaving a legacy, a strong financial legacy, is more than just leaving dollars, right? And it's important that you look at how do you to structure those dollars, how do you focus on planning, how you create investment structures that don't blow up. We had this one client that was in a lot of private equity type investments. He passed away. The wife was like, I don't know what any of these are. I'm going to sell everything and put everything in the CDs, right? Like, that could totally, taxes and fees, a lot of the things that we talked about. So here, let's go through comments here.
Well, we want to make sure we get to Mike's question first because it's a big one that might take a couple minutes to talk about. So,
all right. Can you share it on your side too, or?
I don't think so. Yeah, I can't. So it's Mike Rentmeester at 110. No, keep going down.
Oh, okay, good. These are time stamped.
Yeah.
108, 110.
Yeah, 10 comes after 8. There you go.
Thanks, Josh. All right, legacy planning. We have a trust document that names a local bank and trust. Named to manage the trust instructions through both. Should both my wife and I pass it? Thoughts? All right, this is a good one.
Yeah.
There's several ways to do these, and I guess Mike, we would have to know a little bit more information in terms of: do you have adult children? Do you have any relatives? In my personal opinion, after the first two people should be somebody that you know and trust, family, friends, and something like that. The second, as a backstop, a bank and trust will do a good job. Fidelity does it. Schwab, heck, we do it with Fidelity and Schwab as a backstop. But you should always try to put somebody that you know and trust as a primary successor trustee. The one thing that banks specifically won't do is they won't hold real estate, and that tends to be a big problem. So let's say you have a family home and you want your one child to continue to live in there. Banks won't allow that. Banks will turn around, sell the asset, and then put it in their models and their funds, the ones that they make. So there could be a potential for a lot of layered fees.
We had that at USA. They wouldn't take oil and gas and all that stuff. And it's just, I mean, I'm not saying it's you, Mike, but that is a problem because they're going to liquidate those immediately, and they're not even going to really do much shopping and stuff. And that's, I mean, what's the answer to that? I don't know. But there are trustees that will manage those for you. Of course, the fee is higher for sure. I wouldn't suspect that's you though, Mike.
So there's private fiduciaries, right? That you can get. There's other trust companies that will handle real estate, right? Yes. And go more detailed in terms of execution of the plan. And all these things you can write in the fees in the documents, right? In your trust documents. So like you can get this done before there's a life event and make sure it's properly
Let's talk about the bank as the trustee, though. In of itself, that's not a problem, Mike. I mean, is the issue with the bank is you want to make sure in your irrevocable trust that they can be removed as trustee. We've had a couple of trusts in the past that I worked with that it was a nightmare trying to get. It used to be Wells Fargo, the predecessor of Wells Fargo, Wachovia. Trying to get them removed as a trustee is a nightmare. You don't want to say, my local bank and trust, First National Bank of Minnesota, will forever be the trustee. You did not want that to happen because that can be a nightmare if they start screwing stuff up. So there's a lot to go on there. We don't have a whole lot of time to talk about that, but good question.
Yeah. So there was another one here that I thought was given to charity, and so give when you're giving to charity. In your estate planning documents, consider which assets you're giving, because let's say you have kids and you have IRAs and you have taxable accounts. The IRAs, if you give to charity, and let's say they're equal dollar amounts, if you give IRA money to charity, they don't pay any taxes on it, right? Whereas your kids will have a 10-year stretch, right? And so that could be not maximizing your legacy or your dollars to your children.
My man Drewski said he was asked to be a trustee for a friend's account. Yeah, that could be a pain in the ass, dude. Being a trustee is no joke. I'm just telling you right now. A lot of people take this without even really thinking about it. It's no joke.
This is good.
All right, so go to the right here, my man Ted, 125. Explain the basics of a charitable remainder trust, Amar. 125. That'll probably be the last one we can get to here.
Yeah. So while I'm going down there,
there you go.
Charitable remainder trusts. So there's two big differences here. One is that you're receiving income from the charitable remainder trust in a tax advantage way. And two, the end balance is then going to the charity. So you're getting the charitable contribution, the deduction up front, but the money's going to the charity at the end of the term of the charitable remainder trust. Whereas in a donor advised fund, you're getting the deduction up front and you don't receive any income or anything from the donor advised fund. It's an irrevocable gift, right? So you want to be charitably inclined, but you still need money to live off of and do everything else. Donor advised fund won't help you do that. It's charitable remainder trust is probably the best way to go about that. And Josh, you're right. We're exactly at 30 minutes. We got 46 people on here. So I'm going to just wrap it up with, if you're on Josh's channel, come over to Client First Capital Learning, give us a like and a subscribe. It helps the YouTube gods out, helps other people find our content. If you have questions or concern, you can just go to our website, clientfirstcap.com, and our phone number's there. You can just call us. And we have a newsletter that goes out once a month. Please subscribe. All right, Josh.
Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
We'll see you guys. Have a good night or a good day, I should say.
Yeah.